Hello, beautiful soul tribe. Welcome back. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Let's talk about let's talk a little bit about projection, deflection, the change in relationships. You know, when people that are emotionally unintelligent, the things that they will do within the relationship to make you feel like you are the villain. They will play the victim control dynamic on you. So let's talk about some projections. Let's jump into this. What is projecting? Because I know there's a lot of people, they throw this word around a lot, and a lot of the times they're throwing it around in the wrong sentence or scenario or situation. Projecting is when someone has a feeling of guilt, shame, anger, or regret. It's an uncomfortable feeling that you or someone doesn't know how to transmute or deal with. So it's projected out to the other person. I want to make one thing clear though. When projection is done, it's most of the time, okay, not all the time, but most of the time it's done on an unconscious level. When someone or yourself is projecting what you said or what they said, it's not a planned action. When you're projecting or when someone else is projecting, they're not consciously aware of it. Most of the time, they're not consciously aware of it. It's not like they're, it's not like they were aware of the emotional trigger that is causing it. Because if they were aware of the emotional trigger, 9 times out of 10, they probably wouldn't have projected it onto you, because aware people that are aware of what is triggering them will pause and take a step back and hold their tongue before saying something out of pocket. So it's not like they're aware of the emotional trigger that is causing it. It's a feeling within themselves that they have not acknowledged, or they refuse to acknowledge, or they refuse to deal with it. Most likely they or you, if you're somebody that's, trying to work on yourself, your emotional self, this could apply to you too. Maybe you are a projector. And there's no shame in that, right? I had my fair share of projecting. So most likely they or you lack courage or strength or the knowledge to process negative feelings. So they take those negative feelings and they put them onto someone else. Everything is energy, emotions, thoughts, actions, everything is energy. So those projections, those feelings, that's energy. Those feelings are emotions, energy and motion. And when somebody's projecting in a low vibrational way, sending out a low vibe energy, it's going to affect you and everything around you, and it's going to affect them and everything around them, because energy moves. When we fill up with energy, we release it, like how the sun releases CMEs and light, right? At least that's my interpretation. CMEs are coronal mass ejections, by the way, just in case you didn't know. Okay, so if you are a low vibe person and you're negative and you're angry and you're upset and you're depressed, or you live in fear, you're going to project that out to everybody around you. And that means that you are full of that. You are full of that fear, that anxiety, that depression. You fill up with that. And then you're going to overflow and you're going to pour into other people. And what you're going to pour in them is negativity, right? But if we are happy, and we spread joy and love and light, we lift and raise vibrations around us. And we fill up with high vibes. And when we overflow with those high vibrations, the love, the joy. Now, most of the time, people are not walking around intentionally, releasing anger and fear and depression, right? It's not an intentional behavior or an intentional action. It's just a vibration. It's a vibe. It's energy that they release unconsciously, especially if you're walking around as the unaware, unhealed human being. So check it out. When we suppress something, it builds up an energy around it. That's why I talk a lot about surrendering. Surrender to the process, because when you're not surrendering, you're building up. You're suppressing and you're building up and you're building up, right? So when we suppress something, it builds up an energy around it. And if we continue to suppress and suppress and suppress, it will come out in other ways like anxiety, right? You're going to project anxiety, panic, depression. You could even project addiction. And addiction's not always drugs and alcohol, right? Addiction can be anything from sex to overworking, a workaholic, overeating, working out. What is the term? Working out. Is there a term for working out? Overdoing it. Overdoing a workout. Overly healthy. Can you be overly healthy? Yeah, there are extremes out there. I've seen it, and it's crazy. Because you know what? Sometimes a little bit is enough, right? And too much of a good thing is not always a good thing. Moderation. Everything should be in moderation. So when we suppress and suppress, we also project, because that suppressed action creates emotions. And if you're suppressing something that you're not willing to face, like your drug addiction, your alcoholic addiction, your shopping addiction, your sex addiction, whatever your addiction is, or your ego, or whatever the case may be, whatever it is that you are not working on, something that you have suppressed within yourself that you don't like about yourself, something that triggers you, and when you're around other people and you're triggered, there's something within those people that is aggravating something within you that you envy, right? And if you don't work on that and you keep suppressing it, you're going to project. You're going to project an emotion. It's a release of energy for you to feel better. But what you're doing, it might make you feel better at the moment, but all you're doing is just, if you're projecting negativity, you're just going to project like if I was to give you a visual, you're just making the dark cloud around you bigger and bigger and bigger and thicker and thicker and thicker until you figure out what it is that's bothering you, so that you could release it and surrender to it, so you can stop projecting out what it is that makes you aggravated, that aggravates your soul. So I don't know about you, but I'm 46 years old, and there's a lot of people that I know, that I talk to on a daily. There's a lot of people that I've interacted with in my 46 years of life, and a lot of us were not taught how to deal with emotions. I don't know if this is a Generation X kind of thing because we're the latchkey kids, or if this is just I don't know if that putting a title on that, I don't really want to put a title on that, but I mean, I feel like a lot of us that are in my age group, we do kind of act a little, we're adults, we look like adults, we have adult jobs, but do we necessarily always act like adults? No, right? And I think it's our inner child, our inner teenager projecting out. It's that unhealed teenager, that unhealed child, right? And I feel it's because most of us were not taught how to deal with our emotions. I know I was not taught how to deal with certain emotions. I could tell you this. When I was little, I was taught not to cry because I was told crying shows weakness. And when I was younger, I wasn't coddled. I wasn't hugged a lot. Like I got hugged, like here and there. But my parents were not affectionate parents. I did not get hugged a lot. So of course I grew up with feelings, right? But I just did not know how to release them or transmute them or to talk about them. And when I was not even when I was younger, I was going to say when I was younger. This followed me all the way into adulthood. This has been my life until I started to work on myself emotionally, like emotional intelligence, doing the emotional work, mind, body, and soul work. And I'm still working on it. Like I haven't mastered this, but when I was younger, or in my past, let's just put it that way. In my past, if I did not like something someone did, I held a silent grudge. Like I didn't like you. I wouldn't tell you I didn't like you. You did this thing. You acted this certain way. Or maybe you said something to me that I didn't like and I didn't address it with you. I just was like, in my mind, I don't like you. And I held this silent grudge. And I never told them. Or if my feelings were hurt or if I didn't like something, and if they kind of caught that I didn't like it, and then they'd be like, oh, yo, what's up? Did I hurt your feelings? Or like, did I say something wrong? And I would lie. And I would say, nah, I'm good. That didn't even bother me, right? Because I didn't want to hurt their feelings, or I didn't want to appear as weak or vulnerable. So I ignored my feelings. And by ignoring my feelings, all I was doing was making emotional issues. And these emotional issues just got worse as I got older. So I've been doing this my whole life. So, from being like 9, 12, 15, 20 to being in my 30s to my early 40s, all I did was make these emotional issues much bigger. I was never taught on how to deal in or process feelings. I was taught to hide, what I feel and just put a smile on my face and just hold it in, and just walk away and just keep it inside. And I tell you what, I mastered that. I mastered wearing a mask. I mastered masking. And maybe that's why I am so fucking good at seeing other people, seeing their true self, because I recognize the fucking mask. But that's not a good thing. That's not something to brag about, right? I mastered that, but I don't want to brag about it because it caused so much internal dysfunction that created so much inner chaos that I projected out. I was as ugly and chaotic as I felt. I feel like I was a psycho in my 20s. I think I was a psycho. I feel like everything my kid's father ever said about me was 120,000% true because I was emotionally unhealed. I was unhinged. And I was really good at having meltdowns. And what's kind of sad is because my parents did not teach me how to process. Maybe it's because their parents did not teach them how to process. It kind of trickled over to my two oldest kids that I lacked teaching them how to process emotions, right? I was a young mom. I had just turned 17 when my son was born. I turned 17 and my son was born like a week and a half later. So I was a young mom, and I feel like a lot of my childhood trauma my kids definitely carry the burden of it. When I had my third child, I wasn't even aware that I had this emotional trauma, right? This emotional damage. I wasn't even aware of any of this. But by the time I had my third child, I was also a lot more mature in the way I was thinking, so I wasn't so psycho in my actions in life, right? I didn't have all those meltdowns that I did when I was younger and very, very unhealed. Like, I learned a lot in my years. But I feel like I communicated more with my third child than I did with my first two children. So I feel like my third child doesn't really carry the burden of my trauma like my other children did. Actually, a few years ago, I had a lot of talks with my daughter, especially when we took car rides together. And when I started to become aware of this emotional intelligence, like that it was a thing, and that I was on this journey. This was about 4 years ago. It's 4 years. I'll be 4 years in May, right? And I started to teach it to my third child because she was still living with me. My other two children are already grown. They're moved out and they have their own children now, right? And I started to show her only because I became aware of my projections and I was embarrassed. So I made it my mission to have these conversations with her. It was an effort. It was an effort to change. You know, I didn't want to put my traumas on her like I did my other children because I was aware of it at some point in her teenage years. And it's definitely embarrassing, you know, doing the emotional work on yourself. A lot comes up. You have to face a lot of things, and you know what? You can't lie about them because you can't lie to yourself. I mean, you can try to lie to yourself, but you're lying to yourself. Deep down inside, you know you're lying to yourself. And doing this work, it's challenging, but it's possible. It's possible to change, and you're never too old to learn. You're never too old to learn and apply what you've learned to your daily life. Your unconscious actions of projecting now becomes conscious once you start working on yourself. Now, you know, this has been a 4-year journey for me working on my emotional intelligence, right? Now I'm more aware of my present. And I work on my shadows. I'm constantly doing shadow work. I'm constantly reflecting. I'm constantly going within to see, you know, how I could have, you know, went about a certain situation or handled a certain situation. Trust me, you guys, I am not a master at this, but I am aware of the process, but I'm not a master at it, but I'm working on myself. I am a work in progress, and I will be a work in progress until the day I exit this skin suit, until the day I leave my avatar. So I'm constantly working on myself. I'm constantly shadow boxing, you know, doing shadow work. You know, I work on my ego. I'm still an egotistical little bitch sometimes. That hasn't changed. I'm just a little bit softer around the edges. I stopped putting on a mask, you know, to hide behind. However, I did notice there are some things that I still mask, and it's not like my, you know what? This is something good for me to go into reflection about, but when I'm masking, it's not because I'm hiding something. Well, yeah, I am hiding something, but it's not in a way that you guys would think. Like, I'm not trying to like portray myself to be like this holier than thou kind of person, right? But I do notice that I tend to put the mask on. I have to think of a scenario, a perfect scenario, because I stopped wearing the mask and pretending to be okay all the time. I guess that is the perfect scenario. I'm learning to be more vulnerable. So, like, I used to wear the mask because I was afraid to be vulnerable and I was afraid to communicate. And sometimes I do sometimes find myself masking to be strong, so I don't show my vulnerability, especially to people that I don't know very well. But I don't know, I kind of feel like that's a little normal. I don't know, I feel like that's a little normal. But masking in my everyday life, nah. I'm definitely healing, not healed, but healing from wearing my mask. And I know I mentioned that my parents never taught me how to process, right? But this video is not to bash my parents, right? This is no one's fault. Because if my parents didn't teach me, it's because their parents didn't teach them. And it's a possibility that their parents didn't teach them either. So it's just a lack of knowledge. It's a lack of knowledge. It's a lack of self-awareness. And I'm aware of it now. So this is something that I'm working on within myself. And yeah, I share my journey with you. So maybe I could plant a seed of thought into your head to bring some awareness into your realm. And maybe this is something that you can work on within yourself. And then you can work on it with those of you, those people that are in your life that are around you that love you. And maybe one day this world really will be a more beautiful, pleasant place to live in when more people become more self-aware of how they are emotionally walking around, right? How they are emotionally projecting. So it's really nobody's fault. It's just a lack of knowledge and self-awareness. My spiritual journey has taught me to be more self-aware. Starting my yoga journey back in 2015 has actually helped me, it's brought me to where I'm at today. Self-awareness, right? It helped me to become more self-aware. And I've gained so much knowledge along the way, and I've met so many amazing people along the way. So with that being said, the next time that you are having an experience that you are afraid to feel or to deal with, don't suppress it. Face it. Don't suppress it. Face it head on. The key is to do it with love, right? Don't beat yourself up because you were an egotistical little prick, right? If you are aware that you're a little shit, take it from there, from that point on, right? And just embrace it. You are now aware of it. Face it. And do it with love. Be truthful with yourself. When you lie to others, you're lying to yourself, because we are one. Be authentic. Embrace it. Embrace the impact, because when you start to do this emotional work on yourself, you're going to fill up with all kinds of emotions, because chances are, if you're like me, you've been lying to yourself for freaking years, so many years, and you had yourself believing that you were this one way when really you were that other way, and you hurt a lot of people, and you ultimately just hurt yourself, right? And you get really emotional, and all the lies that you told yourself will come to the surface, and all the things that you've ever did and said will come to the surface, and you have to take accountability for it. You did it. It's done. That was the old you. R.I.P. to the old Gabby. That's what I always say. When old shit comes up, and if somebody was to face me today with something that I did 10 years ago, yeah, I did it. Yeah, I said it. R.I.P. to the old Gabby. What can I do? That was the old me. That's not me no more. This is a challenging process. It's a challenge. I'm not going to tell you that it won't cause pain or heartbreak, because it will. It definitely will. But that pain and that heartbreak will be processed. And in time, you will feel so much better physically, emotionally, and mentally. And when you feel good physically, emotionally, and mentally, your vibration starts to go up. You know what happens when your vibration goes up? You attract positive shit into your life. And with that being said, Learn to love yourself, because if you don't love yourself, you're going to end up destroying yourself. And the next time you are faced with a person that is projecting at you, an angry person, like, okay, so the healed version of yourself, the loving version of yourself, the aware version of yourself, the new you, after healing from the old you, will recognize when somebody is projecting at you. And when they're projecting at you, the new version of you is now aware. And you'll know that they're essentially projecting at you because they feel attacked. Therefore, the healed version of you will not attack back because you already know and recognize the pattern. You know what's going on here. So you take a step back and you allow them to process. Now, I'm not saying you let anybody disrespect you and take advantage of you. I'm just saying that when you recognize the projections, you can then start to create boundaries for yourself or cut these people out of your life. So projecting is when you feel like you're being attacked. It's when someone is very angry. They have a lot of anger as they come at you sideways. They usually blame or point their finger at you and they yell at you. They're verbally attacking you. A lot of us in relationships, we're not aware of this. We're not aware that our partners, or, it doesn't always have to be relationships, it could be family too. We're not always aware that when we're in a situation like that, the people that are doing that projecting, we don't know that it's projecting. Most of the time, we don't know that they're projecting. The unhealed version of us doesn't recognize it as projecting, right? It's verbal abuse, right? And if you stay in that verbal abuse, and you stay in that vibration, this is what your life is going to look like, right? Your life is going to be, you're going to fall into the low vibrational lifestyle, the low vibrational trap. The ego demon, I call it the ego demon. The ego demon will also steal your energy. And then you're going to yell back, and you're going to get angry, and you're going to get crazy. You're going to be ungrounded, unhinged, and it's going to be a repeating cycle that happens over and over and over and over and over again. And you're just going to keep manifesting that kind of situation in your life no matter what, because you are pulled into the darkness, into the low vibe. And most of the time, we stay in that vibration, and then our partner or a family member comes around and they apologize, and then they love bomb you to death, and then they do it all over again a week later or a month later or a couple weeks later. And it just happens over and over and over again. And then you walk around going, I don't know why my life is sucky. I don't know why this. I don't know why that. Oh, I hate my life. Oh, blah, 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 blah. Right? You just complain. You're a complainer. It's because you're manifesting this. You're allowing this in your life. It's all a domino effect. But being grounded and being aware of this is important, so you don't become the victim, right? You don't want to become a victim of their ego demon. You don't want to become a victim of your ego demon. And by the way, ego is not a bad thing, right? You just gotta kind of tweak it a little bit. We need our ego. We need it. But we don't need our ego walking around being a prick all the time. So again, the person projecting most likely has no idea that they're projecting. The feeling that they are feeling or experiencing could be a ton of different things all mashed together in the same fucking pot, right? Because they don't know how to deal with it, how to deal with their emotions. They don't know how to process their emotions or work through their emotions or communicate, because nobody knows how to communicate. They don't know how to talk. They need to release this energy. It's just going to burst out of their mouth, right? They're going to release this energy. And that person may be you. You may be this person. Or it may be your spouse. Or it may be your family member. It may be your friend. And then you or they release and project. And they attack you verbally. They blame you. They're going to shame you. They're going to make you feel guilty. To release that feeling that's within them. This is, a lot of narcissists do this. A lot of manipulators do this. This is actually classic narc move, narc behavior. They refuse to take responsibility or accountability for their own feelings or behavior. So they blame you. It's an easy, selfless act. So the next time that you find yourself in the mix of someone else's emotional soup that is pointing the finger at you with anger, take a step back and look at the whole picture that you find yourself in. You have the power to say, I'm not a part of this. I'm not a part of this action. I'm not a part of this play. I'm not a part of this Matrix movie. I'm not a part of this illusion. I'm not a part of any of this. Not my circus, not my clowns, right? And be kind about it. You don't want to poke the angry bear, because the aware, healed version of yourself doesn't do that, right? Even though it's going to take some time to get there. I'm just saying, right? You're not going to want to, you don't want to poke the bear. Don't poke back. Try to understand what they're projecting and send them love and healing vibes. And you can always walk away and say, hey, I'll talk to you later. We'll talk tomorrow when you resolve whatever this is. I'm not liking this energy from you. You can always communicate to the person that's projecting. It's all about the delivery. And then, of course, if this is your spouse, you do your little thing where you walk away or you leave or you go, shopping or whatever. You leave the house for a couple hours and let your spouse or partner calm down, right? Or, if you guys don't live together, go home and leave your partner alone. Let them calm down. And then have a conversation with them when they're calm. And calmly and politely explain to them on how they made you feel. Because in the moment when they are in their feelings, yelling back will only make things worse. Not reacting is better than reacting or overreacting. So if you made it this far in the video, maybe this video was for you. And maybe this is a message from your higher self or your spirit guides to have you start working on yourself, to bring awareness into your realm, because you don't want to be as miserable as the person that's projecting onto you. I love you, soul fam.